Why I love horror. Warlock. Warlock is the name of an American tongue-in-cheek horror movie that was released in 1989. I saw Warlock for the very first time in 1989, oddly enough. It must have come out on video pretty quick, even in the UK. Um, Basically, Warlock is about a warlock, oddly enough, played by British actor Julian Sands, R.I.P. We lost him way too soon. Um, Basically, like in the Middle Ages, he's an evil warlock, and he's actually got real supernatural powers, and he's basically in league with the devil or whatever. And he finally gets caught, and he's going to get put to death and executed. And basically, in true Ace style, a time storm basically whips up, brought along by Satan, presumably, that basically whips him out of there and transports him to the 20th century, 1989. However, he's not alone, because the witch hunter that caught him in the first place, who's played by another British actor, the legendary Richard E. Grant, basically jumps in and follows him, and it's basically like this cat and mouse game between him and the warlock, trying to catch him as he's moving along throughout LA, I think it is, causing chaos. Along for the ride is a young woman played by American actress Laurie Singer, who gets cursed by the warlock, and she finds herself basically starting to age 20 years in a single day. So it's very much a race against time, and as the story progresses, we also find out that he has other aims other than just causing chaos. He's actually intending to bring about the end of the world. Warlock is a great movie. It's directed by genre veteran Steve Miner, who's done so many other movies, including stuff like Lake Placid, several of the Friday the 13th, and many more besides that I probably can't think of right now. Now, I saw Warlock, again, I saw it in late 1989, under rather unusual circumstances. Basically, for those of you who don't know, I emigrated to Australia, I'm obviously British, I emigrated to Australia in 1991, but we went on holiday in 1989 because my eldest brother had actually emigrated in 88, and we went on holiday to see him and as a sort of recce to see what it was like, because my parents were already thinking of following. We were going on holiday, and we came up with this idea to try and beat jet lag. It didn't work, but we came up with this idea of trying to beat jet lag by basically staying up all night or half the night or something like that. And to this end, my brothers rented 3 horror movies for us to watch in the evening. And ironically enough, all 3 of those horror movies were absolute bangers, and have all become absolute favourites of mine. I'd never seen any of them before. I mean, I was only about 14 or something like that. One of them was the original Dawn of the Dead, absolute classic. One of them was I think it's also 1989, they came out quick on video, the very black comedy horror Parents, which I've done a review of on this channel elsewhere a few years ago now, probably about 5 years ago. And the other one was Warlock. I mean, that was a banger night, because all 3 of those movies, wildly different from each other, wildly entertaining, and all 3 have remained perennial favourites in my house ever since, particularly Warlock. Warlock is just so much fun. It's a great little comedy, horror, fantasy, adventure, race against time, adventure, thriller, horror. It's perfectly cast, it's perfectly written, and it's beautifully made. The music score is wonderfully atmospheric. It's got this kind of medieval kind of quality to it. Julian Sands is awesome as the warlock. Richard E. Grant basically matches him as the witch hunter. He's often hilarious. His absolute one single-minded intensity, and of course the kind of the medieval dialogue he spouts, are often just really funny. Where I think my brother and I used to quote one of his one of his statements in this movie quite often: "Over my rotting corpse." um, Warlock is. I can't recommend Warlock enough. It it got a couple of sequels, only the first of which actually had Julian Sands in it. I think they're recasting with somebody else in the third one, Bruce somebody or I don't know. To be honest, I've not seen either of them. I don't think so. I'm not sure whether I saw some of the second one with Julian Sands or just saw the trailer and thought it looked shit. Either way, the original is untouchable in my book. I mean, none of the sequels had Richard E. Grant either, and he's such a big part of what makes the original Warlock so much fun and so entertaining. So yeah, I love Warlock. These movies, like ones when I saw as a kid and in my early teens, these were like the formation of my horror fandom and why I love horror. And Warlock is an absolute classic. It's one we watched many times during the 90s, kind of lost it somewhat in the 2000s, but then when it came out on Blu-ray in the mid 2010s, snapped it up. Hadn't seen it for a really long time, and it's still every bit as good as it ever was and every bit as much fun. For anyone who hasn't seen it, I wholeheartedly recommend Warlock.